Hello, everyone. It's Stephen Whiteside here from theuptrend.com with this weekend's edition of Protect Your Portfolio. Well, week eight has come and gone, and up until Thursday morning, the market was pretty steady. We even had the Fed minutes out on Wednesday, and it didn't cause a lot of volatility. But on Thursday morning, Walmart announced earnings, and the stock ended the day down over 6.5%. That selling was enough to generate a daily sell signal for the Dow. Then we had more selling on Friday, and that was enough to generate daily sell signals for the rest of the major indices that we follow. Now, Target was already on a daily sell signal since the start of February, so no change in trend there. A new low for Target for 2024. Now, you know things are bad when Walmart's earnings pulls down Costco, and My Happy Place ended Thursday on a sell signal. It was up slightly on Friday, just by 20 cents. So you know the market still loves the stock, but the market also might want to move into cash from here. So I'm going to be watching Friday's low on Monday to see if the market holds that as a level of support or if that starts to break down on Monday. Now, taking a wider look at the retail sector, we can go to the ETF, and you can see it was a huge down day on Friday, down over 3%. And we've been making a series of lower highs and lower lows since November. There's the November high, the December high, the January high, the February high, and all a series of lower highs. And now we've put in a lower low, breaking through the January low. So anytime that you're reading a story that looks like that, it's not a very bullish story. Now, on Friday, we came all the way down from one price target to another and landed on $75, got as low as 74.98 before closing just above it at 75.29. Now, on the daily charts, you can see that 71.88 is our next target and then 68.75. Keep that number in the back of your head. On Thursday, we traded down to the 200-day moving average. That held, and then on Friday, we collapsed through it. And you can see that 68.75 is our next weekly target. And if we have to hit that, if we cut through all this daily support from back here, that takes us back to the start of 2024. So within a couple of weeks, we could lose 1 year's worth of gains in just a couple of weeks if the market continues lower from here. Now, there's the Dow. It generated a sell signal on Thursday, had a fall through to the downside. And, I don't usually show a lot of daily charts in this presentation, but what's happening right now could be the canary in the coal mine. If we keep going from here, we could roll it up into weekly sell signals, but all the major indices that we follow are on daily sell signals as of Friday's close, including the S&P 500, the equal weighted S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100, the equal weighted NASDAQ 100, the next generation NASDAQ 100. There is the mid caps, the Russell 2000 down nearly 3% on the day on Friday. So already on a daily sell signal, no change there. Small caps generated a sell signal on Thursday, fall through to the downside on Friday, and micro caps also doing the same thing on Friday. Now, US financials are back on a daily sell signal, so that's something to be aware of. Now, looking at the iShares for the TSX 60, they were down over 1% on Friday, so we are back on a daily sell signal. That is also true for the Vanguard Canada ETF. It's also true for Canadian financials, Canadian energy, Canadian gold stocks, all down on the day on Friday, all back on daily sell signals. Now, looking at the VIX of the Fear Index, you can see it spiked on Friday, so we are back on a daily buy signal. That is bearish for the stock market going forward. You can see that we ran up to 1875 and stopped. We were recently up to the 2188 level in January, so the market's going to be watching that level closely to see if we're going to take that out or not. Of course, if we take it out, that is a big warning sign that we could be heading sharply lower from here. Now, on a weekly basis, no alarm bells have gone off so far. Yes, we traded up to the upper trend line on Friday, but not enough to close above it. We are looking for a close this coming Friday above 1970 for the VIX. Now, a quick look at what happened to commodities on Friday. These are daily charts, and we've got crude oil still on a daily sell signal, no change there. Inside day for natural gas on Friday. Fairly quiet day for the price of gold. We're stuck up here at the 2968.75 level. Of course, everybody wants to get up to $3,000, so that's not that far away. And our next mathematical target above that big psychological number of 3,000 is 3,046.68. Now, looking at the price of silver, we pulled back into the channel on Friday, looking for a close on Monday below $32.71 to give us a new daily sell signal. You can see at the start of the week, we drove up and hit our next price target before pulling back. If we can take that target out, then 35.15 would be our next target to the upside. I don't know how many of you have silver coins in your investment portfolio, but if you don't have a nice bag full of quarters and silver dollars, you probably want to add that to your portfolio. It's something you buy and you put away. You may never need it. You can give it to your kids or grandkids when you pass away if you don't use it. But I tell you what, it's really hard to spend Bitcoin if there's no electricity, and it's certainly hard to buy a loaf of bread with a gold coin. So it's a lot easier to make small transactions with silver coins than gold coins if the cow manure does hit the fan at some point. And you can't spend your Bitcoin if there's no electricity. So just be aware of that. Now, moving on to our weekly charts, you can see we had a pullback in the S&P 500 into the channel. We're not near a sell signal just yet. We are trying to get to 625. That target is still in play. It hasn't ended yet. Then looking at the Nasdaq, we ended the week down 2.25% basically, and did not close below the previous week's low. We're still stuck to 531.25, trying to get to 562.50. We've got to break away from the 531.25 level before we can get to 562.50, and it does not look like we're heading in that direction on Monday. Now, looking at the Russell 2000, we came into this week already on a weekly sell signal, no change there. We've got the small caps back on a weekly sell signal and the micro caps already on a weekly sell signal, no change there. Now, some of the areas of the market that rolled over this week, global jets is back on a weekly sell signal. U.S. infrastructure is back on a weekly sell signal. You've got aerospace and defense back on a weekly sell signal, and that is also true for the transports. So just some areas of the market that fell apart this week. Looking at the Canadian market, we had a pullback of over 1% for the TSX 60 and for the TSX itself. So there's the Vanguard Canada ETF down over 1.25%, and we had the TSX 60 down just less than 1.25%. We've got the small caps already on a weekly sell signal, no change there. Micro caps had an inside week, so a lot of attention in the micro cap sector recently. And of course, that has a lot to do with the price of gold. Canadian banks are back on a weekly sell signal as of Friday's close. The financials are still on a weekly buy signal, no change there. No change for energy stocks. They had an inside week. Now, gold stocks, on the other hand, had a bearish reversal week last week, and it wasn't a big deal because we didn't close below the previous week's low. And so now we're looking at another failed attempt to make a higher high. And here we are. We were trying to get to 26.56. We got as high as 26.25 before pulling back. We're still closing above the $25 level, so that hasn't broken just yet. It'll probably be a tell if we start breaking down below $25 this week. Then looking at Canadian Infotech, we had a wild week, down nearly 6%. And that had a lot to do with Shopify, which was down nearly 10% on the week. No change in trend there, but that was a bearish reversal week for Shopify. And as you can see, we didn't close below the previous week's low, but we got pretty darn close to it. So just be aware of that. We'll have to see if we get continuation to the downside this week. Okay, folks, that is all for this weekend's presentation. This year is all going to be about volatility and chaos, and we'll have to see if the market wants this to follow through to the downside during the week ahead. Of course, we're coming up to month end. Month end usually has a bullish bias to it. It has a bullish bias because a lot of people have automatic money taken out of their payroll and put into the market, and the traders don't usually like to trade against that. It doesn't guarantee success. It often mutes any downward pressure on the market. So it's not a guarantee the market's going to go up at month end. It's just a guarantee that new money is going to enter the market on the buy side, and it usually goes into stocks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Next time you'll hear my voice is on Monday morning. And at that time, we'll rattle through the most actively traded stocks from Friday's trading action.